I hope you are having a fantastic day. My name is Reggie and today I'll be sharing with you a review of The Hate U Give by Angie Thomas. This is one of the best books I've read this year and I just want everyone to read it. If you didn't know, for some reason, The Hate U Give is Angie Thomas's debut novel and it's being touted as the Black Lives Matter movement book. It is about a young girl named Star Carter who witnesses her best friend being shot and killed by a white police officer. Her friend was unarmed and she was the sole witness to this incident, and the story honestly revolves hugely around that. It definitely has more points to it, but that is the big draw to this book. It is breathtaking, it is beautiful, it is brilliant, and I swear to you it will one day be a classic. Please pick up this book. It's just that good. Let's unpack that summary a little bit more. I have told you that this book is based on the Black Lives Matter movement. A little bit more about the synopsis to help you get interested in the story is Star, our protagonist, is straddling two worlds. She lives in a lower class black neighborhood called Garden Heights, but she goes to school about 45 minutes away in a middle to upper class white neighborhood. So she has two very different personalities, personas, and lives that she's leading. And she kind of has to figure out how to juggle and balance those two worlds she lives in. At the beginning of this book, Star is at a party in her hometown of Garden Heights where she runs into Khalil, her childhood best friend. They haven't talked in a while, but she is reunited with him at the party, and when shots are fired, they flee together and Khalil offers Star a ride home. On their way home, they are pulled over, and as I've already told you, Khalil is unarmed but shot by a white police officer. Star is the only witness to this and she has to deal with the ramifications of what has happened. Not only has she seen one of her very best friends shot and murdered, but she is also the sole witness to this incident. And she has to figure out how she's going to play that card. Is she going to use her voice and speak up? It's a scary thing to do, especially because she knows the media is kind of gonna go crazy with this story. But she also knows that getting in the middle of that will definitely affect both of her worlds, in Garden Heights and at her school. This book is beautiful and important and impactful, and it lets you see the world through a different set of eyes. It's vivid and it's intense and it's just incredible for all of those reasons. The scene where Khalil is shot is very vivid and very intense, and I could see it playing out in my head. Angie's writing really lends well to this whole story, but especially in this scene, it was gut-wrenching, and like I said, I could see it playing out. I could see this making a very incredibly intense and powerful movie, and I do believe the rights have already been purchased, so hopefully that is something we'll see in the next couple of years, because I think this is a story that more people need to consume, and as much as we all love books, not everyone does, and sometimes a movie is a good way to get that story across to other audiences. And that scene with the shooting is super hard to read. I almost didn't want to continue. It was just so vivid, like I've said, but also it's like, how could you not continue? I mean, I knew this was going to be an important and powerful, incredible book way back when I heard the synopsis and first heard about it, but it was just when I read that scene, I was just like, yep, classic, this is going to be a classic. This is telling you the story in a way that no one else has. Obviously, this book touches on the Black experience, activism, police brutality, and a lot of other topics that we need to be focusing on. It also definitely has some great YA components as well though, so don't worry about getting bogged down with the heavy content. While that content is why you should be reading this book, there are some amazing other things going on in this book, including an incredible focus on family, a wonderful take on toxic friendships versus very healthy friendships, and a very adorable interracial relationship. Let's start by talking about the family aspects of this book. Star has one of the best families I've read about in YA. It's just incredible to see the dynamics between all of her family and how those dynamics play into the entire narrative of the story. We have Star's mom, who works as a nurse. I believe she's an RN. And we have Star's dad, who was convicted. He spent Star's first few years in jail because he was involved in gangs. We also have a huge focus on Star's uncle. And Star's uncle is in the police force, which is another great perspective. We get to see this insider's perspective to the police force, and we also get to see his perspective on everything that goes down from the police perspective, as well as a family member of the sole witness. And we also see the dynamics between Star's dad and uncle as they kind of bicker, because Star's uncle was the fatherly figure in Star's life for quite a few years while he was in jail. Star also has a half-brother, and he is one of the greatest characters, and she has a cutest little brother as well. Angie Thomas doesn't give any of these characters less or more prominence in the story or in Star's life. They are all very important to her and integral to who she is, and I just love their portrayal. Now moving on to the friendships that are in this book. We see Star having these different groups of friendships in her different worlds. We see the friends that she's grown up with in Garden Heights, who she might not be as close with because, you know, school's 45 minutes away. A lot of her time is not spent just frolicking around Garden Heights. But these are also people she's been friends with for her whole life, so she has this very strong bond with them still. We see characters who have family drama, we see characters who are mixed up in gangs for one reason or another, and then on the other side of that we see Star's friends at school, and we see upper class, privileged characters. One I believe is Asian American and the other I believe is Caucasian. For the course of the story, it turns out that one of Star's friends at school has some not great thoughts that are definitely racist. It takes Star by surprise. And she has to decide through the course of this book how she's going to handle that friendship, if that friendship is actually worth it to her, and what she should do about it. And I think it was such a brilliant and a beautiful portrayal of taking a toxic friendship that you didn't realize was toxic and unpacking that and figuring out what to do about that. We also see a lot of healthy friendships throughout the course of this book. It's not just the toxic friendship that is a focus. Again, Angie Thomas, there's so many things within this book without making it feel like a lot of things are in this book. It doesn't feel crammed or cluttered. It feels natural because life has a lot of aspects. But Angie Thomas just remarkably makes this just a beautiful and real life experience, and none of it feels forced, none of it feels overdone, and none of it feels crammed. It's just so seamlessly put together, and I love that. We also have a discussion on the value of life. Throughout the course of the book, the media starts portraying Khalil as a thug, and some people say because of that, his shooting was justified. I won't tell you too much more about that particular storyline because I think it's very interesting to explore on your own, but I will say that the narrative that's constructed around that is very beautiful, talking about how everyone's life matters regardless of what they've done. One of the best parts of this book is we don't just get Star's perspective. Yes, the entire book is through her point of view, but because of her dealings with very close people, including the different characters that are doing different things within her life and her family, we see these different perspectives. We see things from different eyes. Yes, our story is told from Star, but through all of the people she is close to, as well as her commentary on all of this, we are getting perspectives from Black Americans who are upper class, Black Americans who are middle to low class, Black Americans who are getting involved in gangs, trying to get out of gangs, who were previously in gangs, who never were in gangs, who went and became educated and moved out, of characters who were never in these neighborhoods, who grew up very privileged and didn't see this and are starting to learn to open their eyes. We also get perspective of people who decide not to open their eyes. We get so many perspectives throughout this book, and I love that it's not just one perspective. It's not just the story of a 16-year-old girl living in modern day America. That is the story, but it's also so much more than that. I don't know if I'm explaining this well at all. It's not pigeonholing itself to one thing, and it's not saying everyone's experience is exactly like Star's, and I really appreciate that. One last thing I wanted to talk about that I think this book does particularly well is what immediately happens to Star after seeing her best friend shot. She goes through minor but important to note PTSD, and I think the inclusion of that is so important to see how traumatic this was and also to show how resilient Star was. Star is like the most resilient character I've ever read about. She didn't feel brave. And yeah, she was, but there's such a focus on main characters in YA today being brave. It's a huge trend. Star is definitely brave. Star is definitely a strong female character, but she does it in such a different way. She's trying to figure out how to use her voice and how to step up and how to not get past what has happened to her, because she really can't ever do that, but to stand up every day to just keep going. Incredibly beautiful to see her resiliency, and it's just a very unique take on strength and bravery, and I really, really appreciated that. The focus on PTSD and how it affected her. She's still moving forward, even if it's hard. All of this is a very long and verbose way of saying I just really think that, yeah, she was a strong female character, and yeah, she was brave, but she was so much more than that. She was resilient, and she was fighting and it was hard, and she shows it in a much more human way than I think a lot of stories express, and I just really, really enjoyed that. Dar isn't fearless. She is so afraid, and she has every right to be, but she keeps going. I absolutely love how honest and raw this story is, how current and present it is, how emotionally stunning and incredibly invested you get into the story, and how close you feel to it, knowing these things really are happening. These are the books we need to be reading. These are the books that need to be written, and these are the books that need to be published. This is going to be a modern day classic, and hopefully it's the first book in many a books that starts a revolution of stories that we need to be reading. I think this is one of the most important books to be published in such a long time, especially in the YA genre, but even without that, it is so incredibly important, and I really, really, really think everyone should read it. This should be required reading forever and ever, and I'm requiring you to read it. Not really, but you should. Because we need more books like this, and if you buy it or check it out from a library or find a way to get your hands on it, and publishers know we're reading these books and we appreciate these books and these books are important to us, more books like this are going to be able to make it out into the world. So really, it's so important you pick up this book and you show publishers that we want books like this. We want diverse books, we want impactful books, we want important, well-written, well thought out, well constructed books that really will make a difference. So that is all for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, you should definitely give this video a thumbs up. You should subscribe if you haven't already, because that is really so much fun. That's the nicest thing you can do. And you should comment down below. Let me know if you've read this book. If you have, let's talk about it. And I guess that's it. So I'll see you in my next video. Bye.